Welcome, my quilting friends. And here today we're going to answer a question that I get asked quite a bit on the history and where quilting comes from. So if this is our first time meeting, hi, my name is Jackie and I am with Jackie Russell Creates, where we talk about quilting and creating mug rugs, quilts, and home decor. So today is talking about the history and when quilting became part of the American culture. The history of quilting began long before European settlers arrived in the New World. People in nearly every part of the world used padded fabrics for clothing, bedding, and even armor. That was kind of a shock to me. With the arrival of the English and Dutch settlers in North America, quilting took on a new life and flourished. The term quilt comes from the Latin word calcita, meaning stuffed sack. The word has come to have two meanings. It is used as a noun, which means the three-layered stitched bed covering. It also is used as a verb, meaning the act of stitching through three layers to hold them together. A quilt is a cloth sandwich with the top. That's normally what we design by piecing together. It is usually the decorative part, and then it has the back, and then that's where we normally use just a plain piece of fabric, or we patch together several smaller pieces of fabric, and then the filler in the middle, which we normally use batting, cotton, or polyester blend. Under the general term of patchwork are three different types of quilts. One, the main or the whole cloth quilt, applique quilts, or piece or patchwork quilts. We will talk about all of them on this channel. The quilt, as we know it in America, was originally a strictly culinary article born for the necessity of providing warm covers for beds. Quilts were also used as hangings for doors and windows that weren't sealed very good, and it helped to keep the cold drafts from coming through their windows and their doors. The earliest American quilts made by the English and the Dutch settlers were so intimately connected to everyday life that the early colonists that had no record they even exist. Oftentimes money and other resources were limited, so quilts were made with what was available, often old clothing that family members no longer needed. Worn quilts were patched together or cut apart to make a usable quilt. Back in the 1800s, they just used one solid piece of fabric on both sides, and then they put different material in between. And then they just stitched the whole thing together. That is how they actually quilted from back in that time frame. In the 100 years between 1750 and 1850, thousands of quilts were pieced and patched, and many of them preserved. Many of these quilts were so elaborate that years were spent making and quilting them. It was no wonder that they cherished the precious heirlooms and occupied honor places in homes and museums. Now, most of these elaborate pieces that they were talking about here are not just the normal people could afford. It had to have been the elite, rich people that had them displayed in their home. The whole cloth quilt, also known as a counterpane, is usually made of single pieces of material on the top and back, and the decoration is obtained by by means of padding or corded quilting in more or less elaborate designs. The applique quilt or laid-on quilt usually has a top made from whole cloth with small pieces of contrasting fabrics cut into shapes or forms that are plied or stitched down. These quilts were considered more elegant than the humbled piece type. Appliques for quilts came into favor around the mid 1700s and reached its climax about 1850. During the 1800s, in many parts of the country, there were a custom that young girls make a baker's dozen of quilts before she became engaged. This collection consists of 12 utility quilts, undoubtedly pieced, and one masterpiece quilt, which was either a piece quilt or an applique quilt for her bridal bed. After her engagement, she would take final steps to turn her tops into finished quilts. Now, how many of you have a whole bunch of quilt tops and they're not finished? Yep, I got lots of them. Comment below and let me know how many of them you have. Another custom was for mothers to make several quilts for her children to have when they left their home to start life as an adult. A variation of these customs continues to this day as quilters continue to make heirloom quilts for their children and grandchildren. That's another thing that I do. My children all have a quilt, and I have now made my 4 grandchildren a couple quilts, and they just love them and they cherish them. So that's a great thing to be able to do. And back then, they did the hand stitching, which takes a lot more time to design and create these quilts. Today, modern time, we have sewing machines, which makes things a lot faster to piece our quilts together. So if you got some information, knowledge out of this video, and you would like to continue to learn how to quilt and make your own quilts or wall hangings or home decor, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can get notifications when I post my videos. And leave a comment below if you have any other questions about quilting that you would like to know about, or how many unfinished quilt tops that you have just sitting around waiting to be quilted, backed. I got a good dozen of them myself. So let me know, and I will see you on my next video.